After a breakup, it can be hard to know what to say to your ex. It's like you don't even know who they are anymore. So when they reach out to you, it can feel like they're speaking a foreign language. Sure, you can read the words, but what do they mean? What do they want? And what are you supposed to say in return? Don't worry, I'm here to decode the most common text messages from your ex and tell you how to reply to each and every one. This advice is primarily aimed at people trying to win back their exes, but even if you're just looking to understand what the hell your ex is talking about, then this is the video for you. Now, before we dive into these examples, let's talk about your ex's mindset at this time, because how your ex is feeling will affect communication in a huge way. They may seem totally normal, but trust me, they're the furthest thing from normal right now. Now, this is going to vary from person to person, obviously, but we can make some pretty accurate statements about what they're feeling right now. So if you're here, I'm sure you know that breakups can be pretty destabilizing. They upset your routine, they change your life in ways that you didn't expect, and they just generally mess with your head. So your ex will feel really unsettled during this time. They will want comfort and stability more than anything. And a breakup is a huge source of sadness and emotional pain. Now, this is obvious, but it's also not something to brush off. To your brain, a breakup is almost indistinguishable from the death of a loved one. It can plunge you into a massive depression and cause you to experience grief. People gain weight, lose weight, stop sleeping, stop going to work. It's just bad news. It messes with your sense of self, who you thought you were, and what your life would be going forward. So they're feeling lost because their identity has taken a major hit and they don't know who they are anymore. And if your ex was the one who ended the relationship, they're also going to feel incredibly guilty about the whole thing. So that's just where your ex is right now, mentally, even if that doesn't come through when they pop up on your phone asking, "How's it going?" Keep this in mind when texting your ex, because every interaction will be colored by these painful feelings from both sides. Now let's dive into it with text number 1 that your ex is gonna send you. Text number 1 is the validation trap message. Now this is a super common text an ex will send, and it's pretty frustrating because it can be quite difficult to decode. Basically, this means any text message where your ex is asking things like, "Why are you acting weird?" or "Why are you ignoring me?" or "So what, are we never going to talk anymore?" Something along those lines. Now, it may feel like your ex is mad at you or like they genuinely miss you, but it's actually none of those things. This is a text you're going to receive when you pull away from your ex, whether you've gone no contact or just naturally cut off from them. Now, if not, don't panic. That doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong or you've got no chance of ever getting your ex back. But if you have got a text like this, it's an excellent sign that no contact is having the intended effect. Even if you're not currently in a period of no contact and your ex sounds something like this, then it's usually a relatively positive indication that they're missing something about you to some degree. Now, I can't give you a single one-size-fits-all way to handle this type of text from your ex, but I can give you some general advice and a few different tips depending on your specific situation. First of all, you're probably wondering why I call this message the validation trap. Now that's because your ex, whether they know it or not, is essentially trying to trap you into a response. This is an aggressive message, and they probably have a particular response in mind. They want you to say, "I'm sorry, I miss you and I need you, and anything you need, I'm there. Please talk to me, I'll never leave you." Or some slightly less pathetic version of that. They're looking for that quick validation that you're still on the hook for them because they're feeling sad and alone. But while this may feel good for a couple seconds, this isn't actually what they want in the long run. If you give them what they're essentially asking for with this message, they're gonna lose respect for you, feel smothered, and pull away even more. So please do not fall for this trap, folks. Recognize this message for what it is when you receive it. And do not, I repeat, do not respond immediately, regardless of how badly you may want to. It doesn't matter if you feel terrible for ignoring your ex and you're desperate to respond to them. Wait an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours to respond to a message like this and show them that you're no longer playing their games. Now, I know this may seem crazy if you want your ex back, but really, it is the right move. You see, you obviously do need to talk to them and reconnect at some point, but early into the breakup, you're not helping the situation by getting drawn back into their web. You need them to know that you're not sticking around begging for scraps. You're on your own journey, you're doing your own thing, and if they want to reconnect, then they're gonna have to make an actual effort to reconnect in a real way, not just play stupid games. So please do not reply to this kind of message immediately. Take at least a few hours to clear your head and think out a proper response. Now, unfortunately, this is one of those times where I simply can't give you a simple sentence or message to use in response. Now, that's because I don't know the exact situation. To understand this more, I highly recommend you go to xbackquiz.com and take the free quiz that's on the site. It's quick, easy, and it only takes 5 minutes. You see, the way you approach your ex will change based on how long it's been since the breakup, how bad the breakup was, and what your relationship is currently like. So go to xbackquiz.com, answer the questions, and it will tell you what to do next. But generally, the ideal response would usually be to simply ignore this message altogether. Now, I know that sounds harsh, and in certain cases, it may actually do more damage than good, but really, if you can safely ignore this type of message completely, that's going to send the strongest message and really get your ex wondering why you suddenly won't respond to them anymore. This is exactly what you want, especially during the early stages when you haven't yet started to rebuild attraction or allow your ex to let go of some of the negative feelings and memories towards you. Unfortunately, sometimes not responding at all can be dangerous because it might cause unnecessary conflict or make your ex just downright angry. So if you are worried that your ex is going to take a total lack of reply personally and be offended or even genuinely angry, then you can send a brief reply after a few hours to make the issue go away without falling victim to your ex's trap. The best thing to say in response is pretty simple. Just reply with something like, "Sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. I've just been super busy lately and I need a bit of space to get over the breakup." Or, "Hey, I'd love to keep in contact, but I don't think it's a good idea right now. I'm trying to move on." Basically, you want them to know that you need space and that you're busy. They can't be upset about that, right? They know that the relationship is over. They can't expect you to just stick around forever. Definitely don't go over the top with any apologies and don't feel guilty. Even saying sorry might be a little much. Unless you're a Canadian, like me, then it's always necessary. So once you've explained things with a super quick reply like that, then you can safely go back to no contact and ignore any further responses from your ex. That said, if you're not in no contact when you get this message, then you can take a different approach. I'd still say give it a few hours, but then you can use it as a way to begin the process of reconnecting. But you still need to take it slow and not push them to meet up or talk too much. Remember, chances are this is just them trying to feed their ego rather than a genuine desire to connect with you in a meaningful way. Let's move on to the next common text you're likely to receive at some point. Text number 2 is the pointless text message. I also call this the check-in text, or the boring text, because it's really just a boring, useless message to send or receive. I bet you've probably received something like this already, haven't you? It might have just said, "Hey," or "Hi," or maybe a "Sup," or "What's new?" It's any meaningless text like this where your ex is just asking something really generic, like, "What are you up to?" So what does your ex want here? What does this message mean? Well, honestly, it's hard to tell their intentions because they're giving you almost zero with this one. Maybe they're genuinely concerned about your well-being. Maybe they miss talking to you. Maybe they're madly in love with you and want another chance. You just don't know. But one thing is for sure, they're scared. Now, what I mean by that is they obviously want to talk to you, but they're not willing to put themselves out there and risk looking stupid or being rejected. They're trying to make you lead the conversation. If you've ever used the dating app Bumble as a guy, you'll understand this. The idea behind the app, at least initially, was that it made the woman send the first message, flipping the script on the typical dating app interaction. But many women don't know what to say, so they just send an emoji or a single period. This would force the guy to make the first move. Now, this is what your ex is doing here, and you don't want to play into this. So how do you reply? Actually, for this type of message, it's a lot easier to give you some clear advice. So if you're currently applying no contact, if it's only been a week or two since the breakup, or if you've spoken to your ex fairly recently, if any of those things describe your situation, then just don't reply. Don't bother to respond at all. There's no need, and it's almost always going to do more harm than good if you reply. So just ignore this type of message altogether. And that's probably going to be the best way for 90% of you watching this to deal with the check-in text. When might you want to reply though? Well, for this one, when you've been trying to talk with your ex for some time but haven't had much luck. For instance, maybe you employed no contact but haven't been able to reestablish any kind of communication with your ex since then. So that's a rare situation to be in if you've followed my advice up to that point. But in that kind of scenario, you will want to reply and take advantage of your ex reaching out. Don't be too eager though. Always wait a while before replying, no matter what. And keep any response really brief, simple, and positive. If you can, make your ex laugh when he or she reads your reply. Otherwise, quite frankly, there's not really any other reason to reply at all. Make sure that the text your ex sends you really does qualify as pointless, of course. If it's not a pointless text, if your ex asks you something specific like, are you going to pay the phone bill this month? Or what time are we meeting tonight? Those aren't pointless texts. But if you get any kind of text saying things like, hey, or what's up? That is a pointless text for sure, and it absolutely does not justify a response. And if your ex actually does have something to say, or they really want to talk to you, they're going to follow up on this text. I promise. Because when someone sends a pointless text like this and gets no response, they know it's on them for being boring and not really trying to start a conversation. The ex text number 3 is the I miss you text. Basically, this is any kind of message where your ex is saying things like, I miss you, or I wish you were here, or I still think about you all the time. Anything like that would qualify. This is any text that your ex sends to try to draw in on memories of the past and your relationship. Now look, I'm not gonna lie to you. This type of message can be cruel because they're not saying, I need you back. They're saying, I miss what we once had. And this is a fine distinction, but it's an extremely important one. Because a text like this will make you want to respond. In fact, I guarantee that a lot of you watching this video that have already received this kind of message from your ex probably did exactly that. You got excited, you saw a glimmer of hope, and you took the bait. Don't beat yourself up. That's exactly what every person in your shoes would have done if they hadn't been told otherwise. And the way you'll want to respond will be some version of, I miss you too, so much. Let's give it another shot. I'm coming over. But really, your ex isn't saying that they want to get back together. They're just saying that they miss you. And of course, this is natural after a breakup, and it's a hard emotion to feel, so they're likely going to try to make it go away by reaching out to you. They know it's a bad idea since they don't know what they want, but they have poor impulse control. They're putting it on you, so that you have to make a move to reject or ignore them or whatever. So if you do reach out and try to get closer to them, there's a pretty strong chance that they will just pull away again. That's why it's so cruel. It seems like an olive branch, but really it's just someone who's confused, flailing around, not caring who they hurt. So please, do not make this same mistake. Now you probably think I'm just gonna say, don't reply to them. And I am, if you're still in no contact. Unfortunately, that is the best choice here. You may think that you're blowing it, that you're missing out on your one chance with them, but you're not. You're just sticking to the plan and making them miss you as much as possible. But what if you're done with no contact? Well, again, you want to wait a few hours to reply. It's never good to be desperate. You want your ex to see that you're not entirely sold on giving them another chance, if that is what they want. You don't want to be too eager and show your hand, or you're just going to scare them off. Now that's also why you can't just jump right into a love fest and start showering your ex with emotional, romantic stuff. Never say, oh my God, I'm so glad you just said that. I've been missing you so badly and I just can't take it anymore. I love you so much. That's way too much. In fact, if you do reply, it should be because you want to use this to set up further contact and set the stage for flirting, rebuilding attraction, and eventually meeting in person. So for instance, a good response might be something like, yeah, I've been missing you too. It's pretty strange without you here, but it's been good in some ways too. anyways, I can't talk right now, but maybe let's talk soon. Or even that's pretty long, so you could just say, yeah, I miss you too. Breakups suck. Hope you're okay. But if you've been reconnecting more, you can use this as an opportunity to have a longer chat and start to reconnect. Just don't make it about your feelings and your regrets about the breakup. Keep things light, be funny, and remind them of the fun that you can have together. Anything serious and weepy or emotional should only take place in person and after you two have established a solid foundation, or ideally, until you've decided to get back together. Ex text number 4, the angry text. Speaking of painful text messages, this is another common one that you might receive from your ex after breaking up. It's definitely not uncommon for this kind of hurtful message to just come out of the blue, even if you and your ex ended things on good terms. It's usually not quite as blunt as, I hate you. Your ex might hint at how they're so much better off now. They might bring up old arguments, or they might give you hell for something you did in the past while you were still together. Now, regardless of the exact details of this message, any kind of text like this where your ex is trying to lash out or say something hurtful to you is usually a positive sign, believe it or not. Assuming you didn't actually do or say something that would justify this kind of message from your ex, it indicates that your ex is still thinking about you and still cares about you enough to send you the message. So how should you handle this kind of angry or even aggressive message? Well, I guess you're not going to be surprised when I tell you to ignore it. Never let yourself get dragged into any kind of argument or show your ex their words have affected you emotionally. Now, it's possible that your ex is saying this kind of thing as an attempt to incite an angry response, which they can use to justify pulling away in their own minds. Because chances are the person they're really mad at right now is themselves. And unless you're willing to give them something else to be mad at, it's going to stay that way. Quite simply, nothing good can come from getting into an argument with your ex. So in almost all situations, your best bet is to simply ignore this type of message altogether. That said, there are scenarios where you need to address this. So if your ex is truly full of rage, calling you names and otherwise coming in super hot, you probably shouldn't respond because it's just going to turn into an argument. But if they seem calm, but hurt by something you did, and you've been starting to reconnect, then this might be a situation to talk things out. I'll always suggest you try to have this conversation in person or even over the phone. Text messages are ripe for conflict because text on a screen doesn't convey emotions in the same way. You could offer a totally valid apology, and your ex might think you're just being dismissive. You don't want your words to be taken the wrong way, so it's always best to do this in person. Start by de-escalating the situation and tell them you want to talk in person so that you can really understand their point of view and explain yourself. Most exes will go for this if they're truly upset and want to repair their hurt. That will cover it all for today. These are the 4 most common text messages you're going to get from your ex out of the blue. Of course, there are a million texts your ex might send you during this time. If you're wondering about one in particular, please drop it in the comments below and I'll help you figure out how to respond. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped, and I'll see you next time right here on the Breakup Corner.